What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about a quick connect system, and we're asking a question of the kayak industry. Why can't we do this with every single kayak that exists? Because it's a great idea, and I think that we should be seeing this on more kayaks in more kayak companies very soon. Please? That'd be great.
And this is something that, like, after Jeff and I using multiple brands in multiple situations, some that can do something similar to this but not quite as good, and then other brands that don't take this into consideration at all when they're designing their kayaks. And to us, it has felt like a limiting factor, not only for options for you, because maybe you're like, oh, I'd like to get like brand X or Y or whatever, but they can't do this one thing. So now I have to go back to, in this case, probably Nucanoe. And then so it limits you to not get some of the things you want because the brand doesn't offer this type of thing. So we think that we should, like Jeff said, companies should start offering it, or at least thinking about it when they start designing the next model in their lineup.
So specifically, we're talking about the Nucanoe U10 and Unlimited options with the Quick Connect system and their gear pod. However, the most important thing about this video is we want to pay attention to if this modular design could be adapted to the rest of the kayak industry. That's really what we're here for. That said, we've already done reviews on these kayaks. We listed our pros and our cons. This is more about the system, the Quick Connect system that we want to talk about. All right, you guys, so first up, we're going to talk about the Nucanoe gear pod. So this is the gear pod right here. It is a big, bulky, cavernous storage center, but we're not buying this for storage. First of all, the price of this is $199, so it ain't free. However, we feel this is totally worth it. It's worth the price of admission. Here's why. If we zoom on in here, you can see how spacious this is on the interior. We've got a heavy duty lid here. We got a rubber latching system as well. You've got a gasket around there, so we're preventing water from getting into here. So this is good dry storage. On the inside, you've got plenty of space for extra tackle, cables, blah, blah, blah. And you've also got room for a battery. So we've got the Naquah 20 amp hour battery here. You can see how small this Naquah 20 amp hour is. You could actually chain two of these. You get up to 40 amp hours for your battery here. And then you can run it through a Yak Attack through hull kit to your fish finder. You can power a fish finder with forward facing sonar all day if you wanted to on something as simple as that. And even with this battery and all this cable in here, I could still take a Busby or a toolbox or whatever extra stuff I want, pop it in here and close this, no problem. So with that enclosed and our through-hole wiring kit, this is watertight. I can go over to my Garmin unit. It's already powering on because I plugged in my Naquah, so it's good to go. I'm gonna hit agree, and we've got a fish finder running right now. The only thing that's still gonna stay on our boat is gonna be our transducer. You're not gonna take that off and on, but here is the reason you get something like this and why we'd love to see this option on more kayaks out there. If you are an avid kayak angler, there's a chance that there's not a one-size-fits-all kayak for you. You might want a different type of kayak. Maybe you like to hit the river and the lake. So you go to the river with the U10, this is the better river vessel, and you go to the big lakes with the full-size Nucanoe Unlimited. Or pick any two kayaks of your choice. A lot of folks will use the Bonafide RVR, and then they'll also use the P127 because they want a pedal unit. Now imagine if there was a way to take your whole fish finder setup and not have to buy two fish finder setups. Instead, you just have one and one gear pod here. You could unscrew this. All we do is take off our two track nut screws. And then there's this tether at the front. Boop.
Optional.
That is optional, you don't need it, but this is all now detached, and I still have my fish finder on here. What I can do, it's gonna get mad at me because I'm gonna unplug my transducer here, but you unplug your transducer, and then we pop that thing off. And with that transducer detached, now I can just take this whole unit. Look, it's still powered on, still running, no wires, Mom. And then you come over here, and I go to my other kayak, and then I ever so gently line up my track screws, just like so. Slots in there, so after I'm done swiveling all over the place, then I'll just screw this sucker down, and within 48 seconds, you've got your gear pod set up on your other kayak. So I can go from my Unlimited to my U10, and I can go hit a different body of water with this all intact. And then if you look up there, I can take my transducer cable. So even though Paul has a different fish finder than me, it's still a Garmin and it's still using the GT56 transducer. So he has the same transducer as me. So I can run this cable up and I can plug it on in to my head unit and then it should stop being mad at me. Look, it's already not mad at me anymore. It's running the transducer again. So we are good to go. So very simply, you can go from one to the other. Now, notice Paul has a bundle of cable here. To be fair, he damaged his arm and hasn't been able to fish.
Ow.
So we haven't finished rigging his. If you go over to mine, you'll see what we'll end up doing is something similar to this. We got these side pockets here. They're really only good for like a 3600 size box. I never really use them other than for my bait graveyard. So it just goes in there. So I just ran my transducer cable up through this very convenient scupper mount that Nucanoe also sells, which you can get if you want, or you can do something else, doesn't really matter. You run your cable up here, bundle it up there, and then that runs up the track to here, where it goes to my gear pod.
So listen, before I get a ton of these comments, I'm not dealing with this. I'll show you right now. I know we're talking about the gear pod and we're like, oh, look, you can have your forward facing sonar and you only have to detach your transducer. I was ready for this comment to come at me, bro. Yes, you can get something like the Yak Attack cell block. This is a great option too if you wanted a portable fish finder unit. There's a major difference between the cell block and what we are talking about, and I think it's obvious once you actually see the picture. But that said, the absolute cheapest way that you could do what we are talking about with no storage would be to get the cell block from Yak Attack or to DIY your own. So you can see, I mean, this is great, by the way. Don't get me wrong, this is great. You can mount your fish finder to the top. It's got a transducer cable wrap on the back, which is genius. It's track mounted, so you throw it on the side of your yak, and it has this, well, you can get their switchblade transducer arm, which you'll also have to get, and a transducer mount, which you'll also have to get. So it's not just 65 bucks. I mean, you're somewhere in the $150, $180 range. Once you have this fully set up, then you got to pay for your fish finder. Then you throw that on top. So if you think about it, it's relatively cheaper, yes, at 65 bucks, but it does not come with storage, right? So this is it. This is the block that holds a Aqua battery. They sell a Yak Attack branded Aqua battery on here that's like longer. It kind of perfectly fits into the cell block shape. So that's something to keep in mind. It's 20 amp hours. It will run you all day. You'll be fine. So if you don't want to buy two transducers and you don't need the storage and you're okay with having the switchblade arm hanging off the side of your kayak, this is a totally applicable solution. Like, this will work just fine for you. What we're saying is we like the idea of having the added storage, more track mounting options, and not having a transducer arm hanging over the side of the kayak. I don't know about you guys. We've run this before, and I'm just not a fan of having that swing arm out on the side. It comes down to preference. I would rather have the transducer underneath. That said, I also understand transducers are another additional added cost, and that this pod is a little bit more expensive than running a cell block setup. So we hear you. We're just looking at like what we feel is a cooler option than this, personally. All right, back to the show.
Overall, the gear pod, fantastic. You can also add like USB lights. You could put like your nav lights on the side of that. It could be your all-in-one power unit. Everything's in there, battery, wiring, everything except for the transducer. And that's pretty clutch.
And again, when you tie together two Aquas, so you're getting 40 amp hours, really lightweight, that's like 5-ish pounds, 6 pounds of battery.
And very small.
Completely insane, not even taking up nearly all the room inside there. So
I've also seen people put like their forward-facing sonar unit in there. There's all sorts of builds on the internet on Nucanoe Unlimited, so definitely go check some of those out. But I've seen some really cool ideas where, again, it's your power center. Everything's in there.
Yep. And the nice thing about this is that, like, the real hack, so to speak, is that one, you're not spending $200 two times for the gear pod, right?
One pod for two kayaks.
To get two or more kayaks, right? So again, you can get the U10 and a 12-footer, your big, huge tournament rig, and your throw and go.
12.5 feet versus 10 feet. So these two kayaks do perform very differently on the water. And like we were saying earlier, there are a lot of companies who have different kayaks that serve different purposes. A kayak for the river, a kayak for the lake, a kayak for tournament setups. And you might get a couple. Again, if you're a kayak enthusiast, this isn't everybody, but if you're into just different options, maybe you have a couple different ones.
Well, and again, it's like we're talking about what companies should be offering you. Again, these base models are not that expensive compared to like a $3,000 XTR, right? You're talking about $1,500 or $1,700 to get into a completely new build. And when they do a new release, if they still let you use the gear pod, then all of a sudden you get the newest one and you can keep the old one and use them both. So
or you get a used version of them
whatever
for
it
even
happens
cheaper.
to be. It's just, it's giving you so many more options. So you only need to buy one gear pod, but also you're only buying one electronic setup to outfit multiple kayaks, which is you're not buying multiple batteries, multiple the only thing you're buying is transducers. So
to be fair, you need multiple
but a few
transducers.
$100s for a transducer instead of $6,000 or $5,000 for a new Garmin head unit. It's no contest. It is a massive upgrade, right? And then also all of your mounting, or a lot of your mounting equipment. So like your through hole kits, you're not buying a new one for every single one of these outfits. You're buying just the one for the one gear pod. So what we're saying here is this gives you so much flexibility. And yes, $200 is expensive, but you're only spending that one time. And then you don't have to buy it right when you buy the kayak. You can buy the kayak, save your money for whenever, ask for it for Christmas, et cetera, and you just add this one component later. So again, flexibility is what it's offering you, and then extreme value. So that $200 goes way further than it would if that was $200 or $300 incorporated into the kayak without being able to move it around.
Wouldn't it be cool if other kayak companies could offer this? You could be modular between different brands.
Look, it's a huge plus for Nucanoe. It's the reason we're doing this, and it doesn't stop there. There's a piece in the back that has been another game changer for us, and we'll show you that one right now.
Some might say a party in the back.
It is, yeah.
All right, you guys, part 2 of the Quick Connect system that we want to look at is the Quick Connect for your motors or pedals or rudder. This is insane. So Nucanoe has this Quick Connect EPS system back here. What you get with this is you get this mounting plate. So you got this metal plate here. You got tracks that are already in the back of both this and the U10. It's virtually identical. It's the same setup. Now there is also a transom mount here. So you could just transom mount a trolling motor or whatever you want. What makes this really cool is this is a very sturdy rear setup system here. This does move up and down, so you can hinge that up. It also has a safety bump system. So if you were to run into a rock, this would actually just kick up and move the motor rather than damage the motor or damage the hull of your kayak. So that is protecting you there. That's really neat. This is just locked down with 2 track screws right here and one that goes through a hole in the hull, pre-tapped and sealed, don't worry, for the transom mount back here. So again, you could do a transom mount or you could do something like this. So what this includes here is you get this plate, you get this mounting bracket that swivels side to side and actually has a very tight turn radius for the motors. We'll get to that in a second. This hydraulic cable that comes in different lengths depending on the length of the kayak that you have. So for example, with the Nucanoe Unlimited, this is an 8-foot. In the U10, it's a 7-foot. In some other models, it's a 9-foot. So point is, that hydraulic cable comes all the way up to the front here. We have another extremely important component that is also maybe the most unique on the market. This is a single foot steering system. This is our EPS foot pedal. So with this, you can push your toes down, and if you look at the back there, you can watch me turn this. So toe down, I'm turning to the right. Heel down, I'm turning to the left. It's easy to do with one foot. You just turn back and forth just like that. And you can recenter it. So you have this arrow here that tells you where like straight is. And then you got left and right from there, which is cool. That mounts to the track. It actually has these little rubber gaskets here too to give it more stability. And it's this right angle bracket, basically molds to the hull as you can see right here. And then it also includes this motor mount, right? So if you want to add your motor, we got the Newports that we use. I have the NK300. Paul has the NK180 Pro. So you can add that. That's from Yak Attack, but it's included in this kit, which is really neat. You also get the pull cables that are necessary to do some things, because you can see here on your U10 or your Unlimited, you already have this pulley system, which is going to assist with the lifting of the motor. So you can see mine back there. If I pull this up, very easy to do as long as you have at least the one pulley that is included with Newport. So I just use my Newport pulley there and a carabiner, and we are good to go, nice and easy. And then it'll lock down too. So there's this little lockdown. You basically just pull this up, and then you just tuck it there, and motor's locked in the upright position now. Okay, so the foot steering is definitely a game changer in and of itself. However, the main reason that this whole system interested us is because of this. If you look back here, this mount, by the way, you could swap out a motor, you could have their rudder that they also sell, and you could use their foot pedal system as well back here. So you can choose any of those to go along with the Quick Connect. The point is, let's say I got a motor. This motor is not free. If I paid the money for a Newport, I don't want to buy it twice. I don't want it permanently affixed to one kayak, and I don't want to have to take out a bunch of bolts and spend an hour and a half re-rigging it to another kayak just to go hit a different type of water. So instead, what you can do is you simply disconnect your carabiner pulley system, okay? And I've got Paul's NK180 Pro here, which needs to go back to its home boat, his kayak. You unplug your battery, you unplug your controller module, and now nothing is attached to the boat except for this pin. So I simply pull this pin, okay? I take this out. I take my NK180 Pro over to Paul's vessel, and I pop it on here. I'll also call this out. Paul put his safety pin on a bungee. I would recommend that to everybody who uses this.
And carry an extra, because I do that too.
Yep, so you drop that in there. Now we're plugged back in. All you gotta do then is plug in your battery and you plug in your controller module as well.
You can move this over, but there's a secret hack for that, so tell them the universal. Show them the universal. Like,
yeah. So swing on up here.
Yep.
Now, one other thing you'll notice for me, I would recommend maybe just getting if you don't like cables being a mess, get 2 of these controller cables from your motor company and you'll be fine. I did a through-haul kit. You don't have to. You can run this external and just run it along the channel to the back. The point is, you need your controller to run your motor, right? Well, the good news is you can just take this off of these universal attachment mounts, and you go over here, and oh look, Paul already has one, but let's say he didn't. This is not here. I can take my controller, pop it on here, and then I can simply reattach my controller cable. So again, I can have one motor unit, motor, controller, and I can just take it from one kayak to the other pretty easily. Now I know what you're saying, but what about the EPS Quick Connect system? Don't I have to buy one of those for each boat? Not necessarily all of it. You could buy some of the parts. You don't necessarily need to buy all the parts, and then you could move some of those parts too. Even if you bought a whole nother Quick Connect system and it was installed over there, that's $450 versus spending an additional couple $1,000s on your motor, and then you just have
$5,000 on a whole other kayak.
Or yeah, a whole nother kayak. Having something like these 2 systems, I can hot swap my motors, no problem. And I would just, again, have to buy the Quick Connect system, and we're good. I think that's pretty cool. Is it perfect? No. Is it something that we want to see in the industry? Absolutely yes. And will it get better if other competitors try to challenge and like do something similar to this? Also yes. So I think that'd be a good thing. I think that's the takeaway that we should have from this is like the modularity would be really cool to see. We've talked a lot on like our podcast, our lives, and with other anglers out there about having a platform that could be motor, pedal, or paddle all together. Why should I have to buy a paddle specific or a motor specific or a pedal specific kayak? I like the option to be able to just add that whenever I want, not right off the bat.
And that's the other thing. A lot of kayaks, when you buy them as a pedal, right? And that's the only option. And yes, you can take the drive out and paddle it, but then you're doing a whole bunch of work to add a motor, right? Or
they include a lot of added weight because of the componentry for the pedal system. It has to be included in the boat. So
when it's through haul.
When it's through haul.
Yes. And then when you don't, when you want to paddle, you have to buy a plug to plug that in and stop the water. It's just what we would really like to see is the idea of, instead of like when you look at the lineup, I have 3 pedals, 3 paddles, and 1 motor or whatever it is. This is the tournament one. Here's the cheap one that's only paddle, but you got to like do a ton of work to maybe motorize one or make the other one pedalable. It would be really nice if it was the same, like this. I'm not saying this is the best, but the concept of being able to say, I bought one kayak, I can make it pedal, paddle, power, whatever I want, and I don't have to buy it all up front. I'm minimizing the weight, and I'm making it easy to switch from one to the other, or as easy as possible. And then after the fact, the idea about the pod, right? Being able to say, well, if I bought a bigger version or a faster version or a lighter version or what, a tournament version, now I don't have to buy double of everything. I can take the pod, and it applies to all of those models, et cetera, et cetera. Will that work perfectly in every scenario? No. Is it something that we want to see a lot more of? Because we're thinking about value. This is what we were talking about with value. Like if you want to get into 2 kayaks, right now you need like 10 grand. That hurts, man. That sucks. And if you want electronics, you're going way past that. In this scenario, are you paying for extra stuff? Absolutely. It costs money to get other things. That sucks. We don't love that, but it's a reality of the world. But in this case, you're spending a heck of a lot less, and you don't have to buy it all up front. You can add it as needed, as you want it over time, which makes this way more value conscious, way more affordable, and ultimately way more accessible to you. And that is what we were always keeping an eye out for, the highest value, biggest bang for your buck.
We think that's neat. And maybe you think that's neat too. If you do, let us know in a comment below. Also, if you have any other ideas for the industry, let us know that too. I'd love to pick your brain and just hear what you guys think about the current state of the kayak industry and the kayak market. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and it is getting better in some ways and not better in other ways. So I'd love to see us continue to advance and push the industry forward. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully this was helpful and entertaining for you. It was a lot of fun for us to put together, and we've been having a blast on these 2 kayaks. So stay tuned to see us ripping around the local ponds with these bad boys, and maybe up a river next year when you can fish again.
Eventually.
That'd be nice. So like and subscribe and other things.
Bye.